Welcome back, everybody, to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BetSperts. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and joining me, as always, looking lovely in his 4-for-4 swag, Mr. Andy Molitor. How's it going today, bud?
Good. Yeah, a lot of exciting things at 4for4. They invented a tool that I don't even understand. And I'm not just pimping them because they are part of the BetSperts Media and Technology Group family, but it's interesting because I do love game theory once I start to understand the actual game theory behind something. And I think I don't even understand what their tool does. That's how dumb I am with this. It's around best ball, and it's kind of an optimizer for like what your strategy should be as far as do I go running back, and if I do that later in the best ball draft, should I go like
Oh, I
wide
love this
receiver
tool.
here? And yeah, and it says it kind of builds out like an optimal strategy for your best ball drafts, and they've been working on that for a while. So I might just like I don't know if you do you know TJ.
Yeah,
Um, I might just make him do a stream with me where he drafts with me and like teaches me best ball and we use the tool because I'd love
I'm
to
in
do
on
it.
this.
I'd love to do a lot more best ball. Maybe we just get him on here and have him talk best ball a little because it's kind of best ball season. I I downloaded Underdog last year. I did one or two. And obviously they didn't win because I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to do it for the experience of everybody else is doing this, so why not
Get some
us?
reps.
So I think I am going to actually do some heavy best ball stuff this year. I'm not sure when the best time. I'm gonna, you know what? I literally TJ's in my Slack. He's in my work Slack. I should just message him, ask him how this should go and when I should maybe dip my toes in. I know people are already, so this will be maybe a fun one for Andy because I love football. I'm kind of lukewarm on fantasy football. I do my drafts every year, but best ball is more up my alley because the draft's the most fun part. Like that's what they nailed. Like do the draft and then just hands off. So
It's
well,
such a great angle. The first time I remember somebody explaining that to me, I was like, wait a minute. There's nothing. Oh my God. Like, I don't have to worry about setting my lineup every week. This is fantastic. And I've seen even some leagues that'll have a little bit of a wrinkle on it where you can actually add players during the season, but it's a one waiver wire period. Like, it's Tuesday, you put your stuff in, that's it. You move on with your life. And it's just so nice to not have to have that lineup sweat because there is nothing worse than, if you have two quarterbacks you like starting the one, a running back or a wide receiver you're debating on for flex, and you just, you're trying to kill yourself. And then when you start to get to those next levels of, the strategy of it and stuff, the game theory is a lot more fun.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, that's God, that might be a thing we do next week. See if we talk some best ball. I'm 90% sure we have a deal with Underdog too, so I might even be able to like give you guys a
We should look
promo
into
code.
this. There
Yeah,
should
well,
be a
just like
code.
if you don't have it, like, and this is not just me being Andy the shill, but if you ever sign up for anything, DFS, sportsbook, or something, I don't care if it's from me. I would prefer it's from me. Man, you better have a promo code because they're gonna give you something great to start. There's always gonna be free money, so I'm gonna check if we have a underdog promo code. I'm 90% sure we do. Um, and then into the basketball. It is the NBA. I talked a little about it with Drew the other day. We had Thor on last night, and he had to leave, and we ended up just talking a little more draft, and then we talked some NBA because the games were going on at that time, and we can't seem to figure out that some people listen to it as a podcast the next day, and they don't give a shit about the third quarter of the Heat Celtics game. But nevertheless, we talk about them, and we got to talking a little bit about the playoffs and how close we were. And I asked you, and you said, yeah, they have these up. The odds are up live, and this is of this morning. Obviously, there's no games until later today, so these are static lines that are up probably until the games start, and then they'll come down. But we have yes no odds for a bunch of teams over at our title sponsor, FanDuel. And I wanted you to just kind of take a once over and see if you think there's anything that's silly one way or the other. The fact that it's a two-way market is nice. It's a heavy fig either way, but it's a two-way market at least. If you wanted to, you can bet some no's. I really doubt they'd let you parlay these, but who knows?
It probably
It's a
depends on how
high
good you are in
correlation, yeah.
general. That's a tough. But it's so I'm looking at this, and the first one, honestly, that catches me is the first one on the list. Cavaliers no plus 184. You start to look at that. So the pathway here again, if for those of you who don't remember, to make the playoffs, you got to make the top 8 seeds. There's a play-in tournament for 7, 8, 9, and 10. 7 plays 8. The winner of that game will be the 7th seed. 9 plays 10. The winner of that game plays the loser of the first game. The winner of that third game becomes the 8th seed. So if you're the 9th seed, you got to beat the 10 seed, and then either the 7 or 8 to get in. Vice the same thing for the 10. If you're 7 or 8, you just have to win that first game or win the next game. So that's kind of what you have to do. So as you start to look at these paths, I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers have the Nets here in the first game. They're going to lose that game. I mean, it would be just an absolute shock if they were able to win there. Now you're looking at a game with the Hornets or the Hawks. I think that Hawks Hornets game is going to be really interesting. And again, not that this stuff is locked down, by the way. The Hornets are only half a game behind the Nets. So a lot of this stuff is pretty murky. I would say that, again, in my assumptions, we're going to see Cavaliers Nets here. So the Cavs lose that first game, and I think they're going to be a small favorite over the Hornets, small favorite over the Hawks, or whatever in that second game. And as I start to look at some of that stuff, I mean, the underdog there, I just struggle to get to. I guess that number is more right than it's wrong. I guess I just was playing around with some stuff and came closer to maybe like 170 ish, but maybe no on the Cavaliers is interesting. That's kind of a momentum play, honestly. I think if the Cavaliers really come out poorly and lose that first game, or you think again they just tumble, there's some just tightness there. Again, the Cavs could drop down a little further, but Cavs no is interesting. Clippers yes minus 430 is aggressive. They've got the Timberwolves there in the first game. Then they've got winner of Pelicans Lakers or Pelicans Spurs. It looks like. I mean, they probably win the second game, but that Timberwolves game is going to be almost a pick 'em there. So that's pretty aggressive. And I wonder if some of that is just an over adjustment for Paul George being back.
I wonder about the Timberwolves price. I mean, there's a non-zero chance in the last 5 games they play that they could get the 6th seed. They are 2.5 behind the Jazz though, and 3 behind the Nuggets. So I'd say the probability of the Timberwolves playing the play-in game pretty high right now. And honestly, like minus 1200 having to play again, you'd get to host. But what do you make a line right now, just off the top of your head, hosting the Clippers if they come in and they're looking good with PG and everything?
Let me see if I
Couple
can find
point
what the line was
favorites?
for that left. No, I think it's more than a couple point favorites. If they're going to be at home against a Clippers team, I mean, I think you're looking at maybe 6, almost 7 points.
Okay. See, I didn't know.
Um,
I thought it'd be like a 3-point game. I didn't realize like the spread would be quite that big. Maybe that 1200 isn't as bad. I guess if they lose that game hosting, I mean, they should be a decent favorite over the Pelicans, the Lakers, or possibly even the Spurs at that point too. So I would not lay that 1200. That's not something, but I
Yeah, it's one of the
think
situations where, I mean, they're going to be, I think, a prohibitive favorite in both games. They also have the small chance, again, they sneak up to 6. I have that pretty much a 0% chance. It'd be hard for them to close a 2.5 game gap with this few games left. They have only 5 games left. So to close 2.5, they basically have to go
it's hard.
4-1,
They
5 and
need
0 and
help
hope
from the Jazz
the
for
Jazz
sure.
flub. But they'll be strong favorites over the Clippers, strong favorites over the Pelicans and or Spurs or Lakers if it's somehow those other 2 teams. So I think 1,200, again, like you said, might be a little deep, but I mean, again, look at the spread on that, right? It's minus 1,200 one way, plus 680 the other way. So it's hard, just because there's not value on yes doesn't necessarily mean there's value on no.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I wish it were more like 8-1. I'd think about that and maybe play back the other way. Spurs, yes, seems like a bad play just in general. Like you should there's an and again, we didn't put these odds on the screen, but you can bet the Spurs to make the play-in tournament at minus 270. And then you could take the Spurs as an underdog in LA against the hapless Lakers, where they might get that win. All of a sudden, you're at almost 2-1, and then you take the Spurs as a 8-point dog in Minneapolis or in LA at the Clippers, and
Yeah, that's just what I was
straight
thinking.
up
You're going
like
to do
I
much
really
better
I
on
really
that.
just think I think you might get to a bigger number on the Spurs than 10-1 if you were to parlay, make the play-in tournament, and then win 2 games. Like
And
that's a nice rollover. If and not that I'm saying that's a good idea. I don't think the Spurs are doing any of that. Like the Spurs to not make the play-in tournament seems. I'm surprised it's minus 270 to make the play-in tournament. The Lakers are plus 165. I did not look at schedules,
so
but
I've got
the
those up
fact,
right now.
yeah,
They're pretty
what show
even.
me the Lakers. What's going on with that?
So the Lakers have one more game. The Lakers have 7 left. The Spurs only have 6. But the problem here, Andy, is that LeBron James looks like he's done for the year. We haven't seen Anthony Davis play. We haven't seen LeBron James play. And I think a lot of the stuff is being priced like it's Russell Westbrook and friends basically for the rest of the season. And
He doesn't
as
have
we've seen, that
friends.
is not a good basketball team. So now the Spurs, they've got 2 games against Portland. They got to win both of those because then it's Denver, Minnesota, Golden State, and Dallas. I mean, really tough finish to the schedule there. But conversely, again, if it's Russell Westbrook and friends, they go Jazz, Pelicans, Nuggets, Suns, Warriors, Thunder, Nuggets. I mean, the Thunder is the only real guaranteed win there. Maybe they steal one off the Pelicans or catch a Denver team, maybe not totally focused in the last game of the season on the road there, but it's hard to find wins for the Lakers and maybe a little bit easier to find wins for the Spurs. It sure isn't going to be a battle of who's going to finish the season well. It's going to be a battle of who finishes the season less terribly.
I'm done with less terribly. So, yeah, approach these with caution. Break down the schedules. Do a little mathing.
A
Those
lot of them are
again are
just 2 leg
available.
parlays, right? Just figure out what the
Yeah,
money line is on the 7-8 game, figure out what the money line would be on the 9-10 game, and do the math there. I ran some of those this morning. Again, most of them came out pretty close, kind of like the no on the Cavaliers, but a little hard to quantify that. There might be some value on no on the Nets just because it's things get kind of funky for them. But again, the spread is so big on these. It's hard to find some value. And again, just because there's not value on one side doesn't inherently mean there's value on the other.
and the Nets have a very funny little caveat to this, as the Raptors got the win as they just pulled away late. Very Timberwolves-esque to not score in the fourth quarter. But the Raptors are not guaranteed, but they're sitting on a 2-game lead over the Cavs right now. So
Helps the
it
Nets a
looks
lot.
it looks like they won't be in the play-in tournament. If the Raptors screw up and end up in the 7th seed, boy, that hurts the Nets because they'd have to play in Toronto where they can't have all their players due to vaccination stuff. So, like, the Nets are cheering for Toronto more than us at this point, and that's just such a funny little caveat to the whole season. I did try to parlay these; they obviously didn't let me, but I thought I took the Hawks to make the playoffs and the Timberwolves to make the playoffs. You should be able to parlay East and West. If they don't play each other in the last 5 games, I don't know. Give me that at least. I understand not letting me do that. I wouldn't let me do that
They're just
either.
trying to avoid some risk. They
Yeah,
don't need
those were
you
at
in
those
there
were at FanDuel. I'm sure you
messing
can
around.
shop around and they might, there's going to be prices up at other places too. So, the actual NBA games tonight, you bet one, and your market influence sent the number into a tailspin. So it's
Apparently.
tough to give that away on the show. But I mean, gloat a little. Let's talk CLV right away.
Well, the
10:44
important thing is,
Central.
Andy, you got to follow me on BetSperts. Alex_Christensen. You would have gotten over 225 at minus 105. We even got less than standard juice on this over 225 for the Hawks Cavaliers game. It is now 228.5 points, pretty much right on my number. I had it at 229. It should be a really fun game. Again, the Cavaliers continue to struggle, but as they struggle, they score more points. They're up and down the floor more without Jared Allen. As I've mentioned before, the defense isn't great. I know Dan is somewhere lurking in the chat, already trying to figure out how many points the Cavaliers are going to score because the Hawks, quote, don't play defense. They sort of tried, but it's not necessarily great. I mean, their totals have been in the 230s, 240s now for several weeks. And again, unless there's a really poor shooting night, I don't see the Cavaliers grabbing a hold of the pace of this game and keeping it slow enough. So again, if that number comes back to earth, I mean, if at any point it bumps back to 226, anything less than 227, grab some. But apologies to anybody that missed it. Congratulations to anybody that got it. We're in a pretty good spot. And honestly, if it gets north of like 230 something, maybe we'll even middle for a little bit of fun here on a Thursday night. Now, the other games
I
are,
was gonna ask if it keeps going. There's a certain point where a 5 point middle in the upper 220s isn't so bad.
yeah, I'll try to look at that and figure out kind of where I draw that line. Now, the marquee game will of course be the Bucks playing the Nets. The Nets should have everybody here. The Nets 2-point favorites. The Bucks should have everybody. I'm just going to enjoy this one. Should be a track meet. The total has been bet up a ton here, and I really don't even think it's just that little Canadian mush influence that we have there driving it up. This should be a track meet. The Nets have been really fun to watch. You've got the Clippers and the Bulls. Like the Clippers there, but just a really messy schedule spot, so be careful there. Lakers, Jazz, go to bed early. Don't stay up and watch the Lakers Jazz game. It's going to be terrible. And then my Sixers are playing the Detroit Pistons. Very nervous. This feels like this has blown fourth quarter cover written all over it. So if you are up watching the Sixers game, let's do what we did the other night with the Bucks and just take them at the start of the fourth quarter. If the Sixers are up by a decent margin, grab the Pistons live, whatever number you got.
Yeah. At least you didn't go full fatalist. I thought you were going to say blown fourth quarter win. Like
No, we
we
should
can't
be
go
able to
that
beat the
far.
Pistons.
You should,
Now,
yeah.
this has Embiid nonsense kind of written all over it, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Texas Open. Speaking of the Spurs, this is in San Antonio, home of the Alamo, home of a beautiful TPC course that Dan and I did a little walk around yesterday. We walked 18, looked at all of it. It was kind of a tricky course, even with the wind off. Boy, there's some nasty like saddle structures to some of these greens where it looks real big, but there's not that many spots you'd want to land because it'll tail off into a bunker or trickle down into a lower tiered area. They're
False fronts, we
really,
call them.
yeah, really, yeah, false fronts, false sides, and then tiered greens where the green is X amount of big, but you have like 30% of it to work with unless you want to putt up a damn hill.
Mini
So
putt-esque.
yeah, very,
I
very
love those
tricky.
courses. I'm a big fan of
This
that. Big
is yeah,
greens with small areas you want to hit in. I think that's a nice little extra layer of thought to add to those chip shots and those shots in.
yeah. Obviously, everyone's looking forward to next week. It is a much better, much bigger tournament, but they still will play this. I still will bet on it. I have a couple outrights from yesterday not doing too bad. I gave up Bryson, Siwoo, and Steele. It looks like Siwoo is two off the pace. I think Steele is right there as well. Yes, he's two under through seven. The leader is, Matt Jones is now 500. Never mind, they're three back. Matt Jones is going to run away with first round leader. I do have some matchups that I played already. Those I posted in the BetSports Golf Discord. A couple of them are off. Not all of them. Not all of them are ready to go. And Food Snob's giving me shit about Costa Rica. Like I did. I was gonna say like Dan, when it becomes 11:30 Eastern, Dan says, "All right, it's 11:30. You guys ready to go?" And I said, thank God this is the only show I have to do today because I did this. Then I played golf with Dan. Then I did the golf round table because I needed a fourth. And then I did the deep dive for an hour and a half. And honestly, I was so tired of doing content, and I'm sure people are sick of seeing my face. And I thought at the end of all of it, the only blessing from all that, other than just spending time with great people and talking sports for a living, is that I did not bet any of those US props because the game was like at 7. And by the time like lineups and stuff were out, I was in the middle of everything. I finally did see someone tweet about the match. I'm like, oh shit, it did start. And then I went back and looked and seen if they started. Dan let me know they kind of went halfway in between, but they played some guys who had yellows. So congrats to Dan and Food Snob for being a little more right on the stupid Costa Ricans than me. So at least I didn't pull the trigger on those plays I said I might pull the trigger on. Sorry if you did. And Dan, yeah, sorry you forgot to bet New Zealand. Oh, he did bet some New Zealand over the Solomon Islands.
Solomon Islands -2.5. They put a 5 spot on them.
Just laid it down. So yeah, the U.S. continues to struggle with Costa Rica, but I am back in Texas as a lot of these golfers were in the Caribbean over the last week, but they're up there now. And just some quick plays here. Some guys I'm fading. Greens and regulation percentage less predictive here. Still important to me. I'm looking for some good ball strikers because these fairways are tough to hold. Almost like you say with a green, it's a tough to hold green. These are tough to hold fairways with some heavy, like areas that it's almost like a false side on a fairway where it'll just run off into the rough if you don't find it's not even the middle. There are fairways where you have to find the 40% of the right side, otherwise it's going to tail off and go into the second cut. So I need some good ball strikers who are
Precision.
halfway accurate off the tee. I'm not even so worried about length because this is a tough second shot course. So good second shots led in by good first shots, and then from there, I don't give a shit. Hopefully you putt good, guys. I'm not really going to put putting into the equation this week at all. So Camilo Villegas, not Johnny Vegas, over Andrew Novak. I'm fading Sahith again. That hasn't worked out super good, but I still am not super keen on his track record despite being on TV a lot on a Sunday one time. Um, Patrick Rogers over him. JJ Spawn over Poulter. I mentioned Poulter already. I want to say Poulter is one of the earlier ones. He goes off maybe in like half hour or so. And then Charles Howell the third, Chucky Three Sticks over Lanto Griffin as my final one. Those four, along with the outrights yesterday, hopefully Steele or Siwoo can climb up the leaderboard, get a little closer to the Luke Lists and the Matt Jones of the world. The top five right now: Matt Jones, Luke List, Matt Kuchar, Russell Knox, and Mav McNeely. Mav McNeely was a very popular DFS play for some people this week, so good for them despite it being chalk.
I like it. I mean, honestly, a lot of those names I've never seen before. If you asked me who Patrick Rogers or Andrew Novak was, I assume they were like mid-level managers at some sort of large company.
Yeah, I couldn't pick Andrew Novak out. I would assume he manages a Staples at some point.
I
So
can dig it.
I'm not sure who some of these people are from when you go on like DraftKings and they don't have a picture, they just have the grayed out face silhouette. Like that's how you know. That's where you know you're really getting
That's
into the
not a good
weeds.
sign, no.
Yeah, you're getting into the weeds there. No
Gotta be
bets
a
in
big moment
Miami.
as a player when you get your picture up there.
I think so. I'd be if I'm like one of those players' mothers. I'm sending it in. Like, you get Andrew's picture on there right now. I'd be pissed if he was the grayed out. So honestly, I'd be pissed if my Phil, the Phil photo that a lot of places use is still so rough, especially since he has a lot better photos. Either way, Miami semifinals happening, both of them today. And then what time is our final? Is like Saturday evening, I suppose.
Yeah, they'll give him a day off, and then we'll have something Saturday, probably afternoon, maybe Saturday evening. We'll see. Depends what's
Sure.
going on that day. But two matches tonight. Nope.
Chalky.
Well, this afternoon, I guess. One this afternoon, one tonight. Yeah,
Yep.
it looks really chalky. No bets for me here. Thought about maybe an over in Bencic Osaka, but that number kind of came out close to what I thought it should be. Maybe a play on Bencic. She's been playing some great tennis, and she's again one of those women who, when she's at her best, can beat just about anybody. But Osaka is sort of warming back into form. I don't know if she's back to being Naomi Osaka, but she's also at a really high level, and at her best is probably the best hardcore player in tennis right now. So 225 on Osaka makes sense. I'm going to talk myself into a bet on Pagula, probably just for fun or something. By 9 o'clock, either I will have talked myself into it or had enough to drink that I'll just put a bet on it or something. Plus 400, there's a little bit of value in that number. I have it closer to 350, which, again, when you get to numbers that big, I need a little bit more of an edge. It doesn't just that 60 points doesn't move the number terribly much from a percentage standpoint. So 410, again, a little bit of value there, but Iga Swiatek continues to be the best player on tour. Really excited to see, hopefully, a final with her in Osaka. So, maybe a Pagula B, a little bit of a double emotional hedge. I like Pagula B. I want to see an Osaka Swiatek final here. But yeah, these numbers kind of came out right. Again, I don't know. I'd say bet the dogs if you want to really bet something, but I think the favorites move on here, and we'll have a pretty big name final.
Yeah, the difference between 410 and 350 on implied probability is 22.2 to 19.6, just off the top of my head. So a couple percentage points difference in your modeling. I wouldn't mind betting that though. I would cheer for Pagula.
It's
I thought
really
about
close. It's
that.
almost worth a sprinkle. And again, like I said, I'll probably talk myself into it.
What was the total on that one? I was going to ask if you had to bet, if I made you pick one, the over or Pagula plus 1.5.
Over.
Over. Okay. I might just do that.
The total's 19 and a half. I made it a cheap 20. So again, kind of in range there, but lean over, lean Pagula.
All right. Maybe I will take that. I'm gonna enjoy these. Like, not only is golf fun all day, but these are like high end women's tennis matches. Despite some heavy favorites, like Pagula's a very good player. Pagula's been pretty deep in some tournaments over the past 6 months. So
If
I'm
you're not
looking
doing
forward to both of
anything
these
at 3
matchups.
o'clock Eastern and you haven't seen tennis, this Osaka Benjic match is going to be great. If you need a little break from the golf, see if you can find Tennis Channel or maybe some other way to do it. And watch that. It should be great.
Yeah. Xavier and Texas A&M will take each other on
Not
tonight.
Alabama A&M,
Not Alabama A&M. I've run out of
California
those teams.
A&M.
Those
Is it
sort of
California
teams
A&M?
are not. Yeah, those sort of teams are not playing. We are right down to the last game. So this is s-
The
6
big
p.m.
boys.
tonight. Fresno and Coastal Carolina. I think so. I think the Fresno Coastal Carolina game actually got bumped to tomorrow. I feel like there's some scheduling issues where like Fresno couldn't get to Carolina or something along those lines. But either way, the NIT final, Xavier, Texas A&M. That's happening tonight on a neutral court. So don't go taking anything into account there. It will be at the Mecca, right across the street, down the road from Alex, way down the road from Dan, out in the New York City area, I believe is where Madison Square Garden is. But
Yes, I
Xavier,
believe.
Texas A&M over. I know we end up with a Texas A&M team that has a pretty good defense at sometimes, a slowish pace sometimes. I'm looking for Xavier to drive this pace a little. I don't think Xavier has the defense to really limit A&M, and they're going to have to play at a quicker pace, keep it up. I wish these teams shot better from three, but we've seen these teams score some bigger. Like what Xavier put up on the Bonnies, especially in the first half, is the kind of offense I'm expecting. And again, we we did see A&M kind of impose their will defensively against Wake and Washington State. I think Xavier's offense can get a little better results than God, those teams scored in like the 50s. Either way, this is predicated on Xavier's offense being able to drop 70 tonight. So over 137, 137 and a half, a lot of places. I'm fine with that. The NIT is the National Invitational Food Snob. It is actually older than the NCAA tournament. It has been
It was
doing
the
it for
national championship tournament at one point, right?
yeah, they've been doing it for a trillion years, and I don't know where they come up with all these other tournaments. I suppose it's just money at this point. Like we can make a few bucks hosting the College Basketball Insiders, or there used to be something called the Vegas 16. I'm fine with this many tournaments. Like if they had tournaments where all 358 teams played a postseason tournament, I think the bottom one would be hilarious. Like all these teams that won like 2 games all year getting to play in just like the shit bottom tournament. They should put it somewhere horrible like Tulsa.
I
Sorry,
had this idea
Oklahoma.
for a bowl game.
Yeah,
Find like the
yeah.
tiniest
The
town
worst
in
team.
Minnesota, like the saddest town in Minnesota. You have and it was back when they had the BCS, when they literally
It would be
ranked every
Butterfield, I
team
think.
for the BCS. And you find the bottom two teams of the BCS, you put them in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, and you get Spam to host it. And it's the Spam best of the worst bowl. The
You'd have to
Spam
it'd
not
have
to
to
be
be near
last bowl.
Austin then. Yeah, I'd put it near Austin. That's where Spam is made. There's a little town south of Austin called Andysville, just like you'd think it's spelled. It's not even really a town. I don't think it's incorporated. Andysville, Minnesota, Spam Invitational. I'm down with that. With that, this has been a long show. We bullshitted for a long time. We love you guys. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Thanks for joining us all week. We'll be back one more
Another good
day.
chat day. Well done.
Great job by the chat. Hit the thumbs up in the YouTube channel. That helps somehow to make sure other people can find it
It just makes Andy feel
somehow.
better.
And it does help me. I don't understand. It does something with the SEO algorithm. So thumbs ups are good. You know what's even better? A comment. If you ever want to leave a comment on the YouTube channel, that's good too. Just say hi. Say, hey, Andy, what's up? Hey, Alex, what's cracking?
Anything you want. Pick whatever word pops first into your phone and auto text.
Yeah, word association. All right. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.